Good morning, my fellow Michiganders. Good morning, my fellow Americans. Hey, I wanted to get on here this morning because I just sat down with Mike Rogers, who's running for Senate, as you guys are all well aware of, and he has agreed to come on a last-minute live. This was not planned. This was basically last minute. So he has agreed to come on and just answer some very tough questions for all of us, which I give the guy a lot of credit for doing. So we're going to get right after it, too. I'm going to flip it around. We're going to see Mike. Mike, welcome so much.
Thank you, sir. It's good to see you.
It's
Great to not see our fellow Michiganders.
And that's right, man. So a lot of people didn't know. I was just like looking up some of the things that you were doing, and you graduated from Adrian College, which was, Congressman Walberg's neck of the woods, along where I grew up.
Yeah, great school. I was. It made me a better student. Small school, Methodist-based. It was a great experience for me. And the current president's done a phenomenal job of building that college out for the young men and women who are going to attend there. And I'll guarantee you, you'll get a good education. Listen, a lot of people talk about the fancy Ivy Leagues. Matter of fact, I think everyone else in the race is an Ivy Leaguer. I'm not. I was a working guy. My parents were working people. We went to Adrian College, best education, and I would put that education up against any Ivy League school because it's what we got out of it.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not the alumni list that everyone goes to Harvard and Yale and Columbia, all of those schools. This was about what you get out of it, what you learn, and what you do with it. That's why I love a school like Adrian College. Great education.
Yeah, and I was just telling you that my mom was a school bus driver in Adrian for, I think, over 20 years. So very familiar with the area. And I told you a lot of my buddies that I played football with played football at Adrian College. Yeah. Great facility, great campus, great people, great culture. Really? So we had to get a shout out to your alma mater. There's no doubt about it.
Gaines going to come speak at the school.
That
tells you where they're at as opposed to all the other colleges.
And you're exactly right for that president to put himself on the line and just to have conversation. I mean, that's what people mostly want right now in today's environment. Hey, let's hash it out. Let's talk. And that's why I wanted to bring you on today. And thank you so much for just coming in at this last second and being transparent, because the transparency is huge.
Absolutely.
With folks now. And let's get into the FBI, because I see a lot of people are saying, that you working for the FBI is a bad thing. And my history is in law enforcement, and I saw that you worked in organized crime, and that's what I wanted to get into when I was in the academy back in the early 2000s.
I love the FBI. There's two things I wanted to do when I got in. And I served as an Army officer and went into the FBI. I wanted to work Soviet spies, catch the Russians trying to spy on us here, or organized crime. And so I did well enough in the academy. I got sent to Chicago to work on the organized crime squad, which was phenomenal. And think about it, this is what the FBI is about. Big, complicated cases, human trafficking at that time. Believe it or not, they've been at this a long time. Drugs, extortion, bombings. I got to work all of that. And I think we had a big impact. And they were also, by the way, trying to corrupt local officials. We were able to put an end to a lot of that as well. So it was a phenomenal experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Matter of fact, I used to tell people, if they told me I had to do this for free, I probably would have done it. I'm glad they didn't ask.
Yeah.
Because I needed the money. But
yeah.
I'm telling you, phenomenal experience. And you learn a lot by working the streets of a city like Chicago and organized crime, and what's wrong with government, what's wrong with criminal activity, what it really means to be a victim of a crime, which I think the Democrats and the leftists today have forgotten.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that, especially Chicago being one of the most corrupt cities in the union, that's for sure. And Obama was there at that time, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I want to talk about a little bit of how the FBI has changed, though, like to what you went through to what it was. Now it's kind of a different kind of atmosphere, and a lot of people are thinking that the FBI has changed, which we probably would agree that it has, but they're actually targeting, Catholics and Christians and moms at school boards. I mean, is that the FBI that you were a part of?
No, never. Matter of fact, I just can't imagine any of this happening back when I was an FBI agent. Matter of fact, FBI agents would have grabbed an agent, taken him around back in the building, straightened him out a little bit.
Old school, right?
It would have been very old school. That just didn't happen, wouldn't happen. What worries me most is they took a lot of these investigations that would happen in field offices. As a matter of fact, remember Dan Rostenkowski was the Energy and Commerce chairman. It was Energy and Commerce or Ways and Means. I'll have to go back and look at that. Chairman when Hillary Clinton was trying to do Hillary Care. I don't know if people remember this. Well, that case was in the Chicago division and worked in the Chicago division. Now what they do is they take all of those cases and put them at headquarters, which is in Washington, D.C., which is full of political appointees and other things. So you want to know what got screwed up? They moved these cases to where the Department of Justice and the political appointees there had more influence on these cases. That's what I think went wrong.
Yeah.
And now you see them, an analyst, saying that we're going to go after Catholics because they may be at risk. I can't think of anything more anti-American than that. Showing up at a school board meeting because parents are concerned about the education of their children. I can't think of anything more un-American. I went to speak to a former agents association group, and these were agents who did work in that kind of bureau that we focused on criminals and trying to catch, now it was Russian spies, now Chinese spies that are about every 3 feet in the country, and they're concerned. These are the agents who built the reputation of the FBI by hard work, hard-nosed work, never cheating, never planting evidence. You flip this around and look at the FBI I see today. That's not the same FBI. It must change. It has to change. And one of the things that I tell people that they miss in this conversation is you work, at least you used to, work a lot alone. You go up to a house and you open up your credentials that had your badge and your the identifier placard, and that used to mean something.
Yeah.
And it means you could go into a dangerous place by yourself and flip that up, and it felt like you had some friends behind you, even though you didn't. I worry that what they've done to the FBI and what this new style leadership has done to the FBI is really harmful to agents who are actually going up and flipping up those creds. And remember, about 2 years ago, we had 2 agents killed going to the door by themselves on a child pornography case.
Yeah.
And he ended up shooting through the door and killed them both. Really unfortunate. Those are the kinds of FBI agents. Those are the deeds we need to get back to, and we need to stop this political effort on what I see in the FBI that's really dangerous for the future of the country.
Yeah, it seems like they've almost weaponized it for their own political agenda. I mean, even the FBI came to my house. Somebody called in and said I was a radical right extremist, and so they came and visited me. So going through that was just, I felt like overreach, right? So I'm glad that you said that you want to basically overhaul and get back to where it was. And even when I was growing up, you wanted to be an FBI agent. That was a hero job, and unfortunately,
we need to get it back to that.
Yes,
we have a lot of problems out there. Think of this new crime wave that's coming to America. This to me is a great example. Matter of fact, what I would do first, here's the good news about sending a guy like me to Congress. I know how the FBI is supposed to work. I also know who to call, whose cage to rattle, whose collars to grab. I know how I can do that right on the first darn day I get there. And when you think of the challenges of this crime wave coming through the southern border, I want the FBI dismantling a fentanyl network that killing 3,000 Michigan citizens last year. 3,000. I want to make sure that we go after the folks who are assaulting our children. Right? We've had several cases in the state. We've had illegal immigrants assault a 14-year-old in Livingston County. There was at least one illegal immigrant in Shiawassee County.
And just happened in Sturgis.
It just happened in Sturgis again. You saw that as well. And then you talk about the murder in Grand Rapids of Ruby Garcia.
Yep.
Those are the kinds of things we're going to focus the FBI on, not this nonsense that they're doing, showing up at your house, asking you about your political opinion is wrong.
Absolutely.
It's dangerous, and we got to do something about it.
Especially being the former chair of the U.S. House Permanent Select Committee of Intelligence, that was the oversight of the intelligence community. So you have the resume to be able to do just that.
And you didn't hear about these things happening when I was chairman.
No, you did not.
I would not have let it happen. I'm telling you, this we have to understand. You got to get the right people in the right jobs to make sure this stuff doesn't happen and steer them in the right direction. Which one of the reasons I think Donald Trump endorsed me is for that exactly, right there. He understands on the first day I can help get DOJ going in the right direction and help on the border, make sure that we close that border day one. And remember, the work on closing the border starts the day after at trying to find these hundreds of thousands of people. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they are. We don't know what their intentions are. As you and I talked before, there's some of these people coming across the border are good people, truly looking for work. But what percentage are not? And I think that percentage of bad people is going up, because now they know they have a free pass to get into the country. That's what worries me, and we need to work on. We're going to have to get right on that.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about, like, just on the lower estimate, let's say 2 million of those folks that come over, you just take 1%, that's 20,000 bad actors, and we're depending on these agencies and local police departments to handle that. I mean, they're already overworked, and they're understaffed because people don't want to become a police officer anymore because the culture that the Dems built about it with defunding the police and everything else. So it's tough on the law enforcement right now.
Defunding the police, taking away their ability to protect their families and their homes, by taking away what's called qualified immunity.
Yep.
That's an anti-police action. And what these police officers the other day in this roundtable were talking about is exactly that, man. We are under siege. You know, the left doesn't respect us. They want us to go away, except when somebody's kicking in their front door, they want to call the police off and expect you to show up.
Absolutely.
Right? We need to support them on the good days and the bad days. And what the officers are telling us, there's a lot more bad days. We have one county here, a small county in Van Buren County, where the sheriff the other day said 10% of his inmates are from outside the country. Right? That's not sustainable. We're paying for that. Think of last year we spent $350 billion housing, feeding illegals, right? All across the country. That's enough money to pay for every Michigan State trooper and every teacher in Michigan for 15 years.
It's amazing. And plus, if you look at what the Democrats are doing, especially Slotkin, all you see them kind of get around right now is the abortion issue. And they talk about health care, which I think is very, very small right now to the average American, where we're having trouble paying for groceries, we're having trouble buying a house, you know, all this stuff, all this debt. Our debt continues to grow in our country. And the kitchen table issues right now, people are hurting in the economy. People are hurting right now, the public school systems with their parental rights taken away. And so obviously they're trying to push out a narrative, and they're not talking about the kitchen table issues, which they're obviously very good at. I want to move on to a very important topic that's very, very passionate to a lot of people, is the war in Ukraine. Okay, and a lot of the congressmen and women continue to vote to send money over there. Now, what people don't understand is that, you know, Congress, the people who are in Congress and everything else, they have a lot more information than normal people. So when they're making these decisions, they're probably hopefully making it for the good of the country. That's what we would imagine. But why are we sending money over to Ukraine? Can you give us a little bit of background on that?
Sure. So there's a couple of things I think to keep in mind about Ukraine. So the invasion itself was a bit of a problem, only in the sense that if you look at the history of Vladimir Putin's conversations, Ukraine was stage one. Places like Moldova and Transnistria, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, those are the countries he talks about in the same way he talked about Ukraine. And so I think the Europeans were saying, hey, we got to at least keep them at bay. And I agreed with that. Biden did this as exactly wrong as you can. Folks like me were saying, help them become a porcupine. Don't let Vladimir Putin come across the border, right? Give them, you remember when in the beginning they said, well, we can't give you tanks, that would be bad. Well, now we're giving them tanks.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't give you airplanes because that would be bad. Now we're giving them airplanes. We even stopped the Germans from giving Leopard tanks, which are really good, battle-ready, frontline tanks. They wanted to do it, and the United States, let me rephrase that, the Biden administration stopped it. If we had done that, I think it would have changed Putin's calculation about going into the country. Here's where I think, and I think this was an elegant solution that Trump talked about as well, is to do this lend-lease, meaning, guess what, we're going to help you not lose, as I think that's important for all of our national security, but you're going to have to pay us back. You're going to be a very wealthy country when this is over. You'll have natural resources, you'll have Western help, both economically and militarily, meaning not directly, certainly because I as an Army guy myself, and my son's in the military, 4th generation served, we don't want men and American sons and daughters fighting there.
Yeah.
We do not want that. So we have to find a way to do that. Make them pay it back. I thought this was an elegant solution proposed by Donald Trump that I heard, and I thought that's the smartest way to do this. And by the way, we also refresh our ordnance supplies here in the United States. Some of it's getting a little old. Yeah, the sell-by date is getting a little close.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity for us to make sure that keeps the Russians at bay. We replenish our supplies here, and they're going to have to pay us back. That's the right way to do it.
Yeah, Perfect. So I want to move on to something that's happening here in the state of Michigan with the China owned battery plants, right? That were a bunch of grassroots folks have stood up against Governor Whitmer and what she's trying to do. And obviously you worked on the House Energy and Commerce Committee to secure our nation's energy independence. And so what are your thoughts on that? Are you for stopping China infiltrating Michigan?
The answer to that, yes, yes, and yes. Energy, we have to have energy independence. I'll tell you why. What you see happening in the Middle East is the Biden administration trying to shut down our ability to be energy independent. And now we had to be engaged in the Middle East in a way that is entangled, not engaged. Meaning, remember when he got on an airplane, President Biden, and went to Saudi Arabia and begged for oil?
Yeah.
Let me give you we have a minute.
Yeah.
The few things that he did in the beginning got us this mess that's happening in the Middle East. It could have all been avoided. He did one simple thing, started out. He didn't allow the Saudis to keep shooting at the Houthis. Remember this? He took the Houthis off the terrorist list, right? Number two. Number three, he gave Iran the ability to sell their oil in the open market, gave them billions and billions of dollars. All three of those really bad decisions, right, led us to this mess that you see happening in the Middle East. Matter of fact, I argue it contributed greatly to Hamas going into Israel and slaughtering 1,200 people, raped them, killed children, killed women, kidnapped people who they still hold hostages, right? Excuse me. That's all because of really bad decisions by the Biden administration. That candidly, if Trump were there, we wouldn't have, I don't think we would have had the Hamas problem. We wouldn't have the Houthi problem either, by the way. And so you look at those kinds of things, really important to get after energy independence. On the China piece, China is moving out. They want to dominate the U.S. economy by 2035, right? So the Biden administration comes out and says, we're going to mandate that you have to buy an electric car. And by the way, we're going to give a business tip to all your viewers. You're going to want to get in on this. Let's make the longest extension cords in the history of the world for those cars, right? You'll be able to run that cord all the way to Toledo if you want. I mean, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. You're going to mandate us having to buy a car where 85% of the critical minerals processed happens in China, right? What? And they're telling us they want to dominate our economy. They're now building plants, and President Trump brought this up when he was in Grand Rapids. They're building plants in Mexico because they're now the #1 producer of electric vehicles. And why are they doing that? They know that the government, your government, our government, Biden's government is mandating you're going to have to buy one of these things in a car lot near you. And it empowers the Chinese. Here's the worst part about the battery plants. We're paying for that. Federal dollars and state dollars, something like $3 billion of our taxpayer dollars are going to the Chinese. And by the way, the Democrat the Democrat CIA director came to the United States, right? Excuse me, talked about the Chinese coming to the United States. You got me all worked up.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, you go, you're on a roll.
I am. And he was basically saying there will be Chinese spies amongst those scientists that come. It's not that they might, it's not there's a chance, there will be Chinese espionage agents coming to Michigan. And what's within 60 miles of those plants?
Yeah.
Right? Grayling.
Yep.
And what do we do there?
Yep.
We train Taiwanese soldiers how
Every
to
year.
fight Chinese so they don't invade their island. I mean, you can't even make this up.
Which the White House just came out and said they do, what they say the other day, they don't support Taiwan's independence. They came out and basically put that out there.
Yeah.
Like,
And
they're going to get us in World War III, right?
And here's the thing. We don't want to get entangled in sailors, Marines, and soldiers shooting the Chinese. We do not want to do this. So how do you avoid that? You build a world-class Navy, right, which they have degraded, number one. And number two, you make Taiwan a porcupine. Didn't we just learn this lesson?
Yeah.
We just learned this lesson in Ukraine. They didn't want to give them anything. My argument is build that porcupine, build it now, make the Chinese second think about if it's worth the consequences of trying to go into Taiwan.
Well, let's go into, because you talked about espionage, and especially with your history with the FBI and being on the Intelligence Committee, is what they're willing to do. Now, there's a lot of us out there that believe the China virus, the COVID virus, was intentionally released to bring down a sitting president, which they were successful at because it destroyed the economy, and I firmly believe it swayed the election. But Rand Paul right now is very adamant on bringing Fauci in front of committees and testifying and finding out what happened. Would you agree with that approach, and what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, information and transparency is going to save the republic here. And if we don't have it, I fear about what the next round looks like. If this was intentional, and certainly there's circumstantial evidence that implies that. I'm an old FBI guy. I want to see the facts.
Yep.
But we have to get the facts, and we can't be afraid of getting the facts, no matter where it takes us. And so I would absolutely be for having those investigations, fully understanding it. What are the Chinese programs? Why did Fauci actually have funding into one of those plants where we think that the virus came from?
Yeah.
You start going through the questions you have to ask in this. The only way to do it is with an investigation to get the answers. We should be careful not to inflame something that shouldn't be, but we should also not stand in front of the ability to find out the truth in these things.
And I think that is where most of Americans lie. Just give us the truth.
Right.
No matter how horrible it is, good or bad, let us figure it out, and we'll do it amongst each other, and we'll get through it. But when people are hiding information, they're pushing on a narrative like ivermectin's bad and everything else, we won't even go down that path. But that was the problem since all the lockdowns, was the misinformation, and they censored people like me and other doctors and everything else that were saying, well, wait a minute, there's a better way of dealing with this. I want to get into fundraising because this is huge, because Slotkin, who is your opponent, as of right now, we know somebody else is running up against her, but she has raised $16 million, spent $8 million so far. So she is obviously getting a war chest, and estimates right now on the low end, I'm hearing that $50 million is going to come into this race. So fundraising, which a lot of people don't want to talk about, but it is critical to win an election, is you have to fundraise. You have to be able to fight the narrative that they put out to you on corporate media. You have to fight against the censorship that social media has a tendency to do to us Republican candidates. How much have you raised so far?
We should be pushing over $3 million to date, which candidly is not enough.
Yeah.
We have to get back at it. She has like $8 million in the bank. And it's pouring in from California and New York and Illinois. That money is pouring into this state. So we need to understand something. I think this is really important for your viewers to understand. We better start pulling together soon. Well, one of the reasons, again, Donald Trump said, Rogers, you're the guy, is because we have to build the infrastructure that helps not only Donald Trump win the state, but help us win this Senate seat. And if you want to fire Chuck Schumer, the way to do this, come together early, let's build the infrastructure, let's raise the money. Again, money in the campaign is what we do to defend ourselves. They are going to attack us. I told my wife they're going to call us everything but our Christian name, and maybe you should turn the TV off and hide in the basement for the next 3 months. They're going to come, they're going to be nasty, they're going to lie. And what we've got to do is have the courage to stand up in the way that we can make a difference. In a precinct, in your neighborhood, at work, having the courage to say, let me tell you why this is the right decision to go this way. Not to scare people, but to bring them in and understand we can do this. We can have a better America. We can have America that's back on track. We can have a government that's smaller, more efficient, and more customer friendly. Imagine that. As a guy that actually cut money from a budget in Washington, D.C. when I was there, find too many members that have done that. Matter of fact, it was in the Intel budget, $78 billion at the height of Iraq and Afghanistan. I found 10% of waste in that budget and cut it out. I didn't run around and have a big press conference. We just did it.
Yeah.
And my argument is it can be done. We must do it, but we have to do this together soon. We can't wait till August. It's too late.
Do you feel, because a lot of people are feeling the pain at the gas stations and the grocery stores and interest rates and buying a house, do you feel where the economic crisis is right around the corner? Do you think we're going to go through this, or do you think there's a way out of it?
I think there's a way out of it, but you have to start immediately. I mean, the most expensive vehicle to operate in 2024 is your grocery cart. $1,000 a month for the average family that they're paying because Biden and the Democrats borrowed money we didn't have and spent it and gave it away in droves. And by the way, they're still doing this. If you listen to the news, they want to borrow more money and spend it early. They want to give it to students who said they would pay back their student debt. But we're going to forgive them for that because they want their votes. Yeah. I mean, this is as a sure way to ruin a republic as anything I've ever seen. And so you can do it. We have to work our way through it. We can do it smart because you have to me, you have to do it two ways. You have to, A, cut the size and scope of the federal government. It has to happen. But you also have to grow the economy. this huge regulatory burden, the fact that they don't want to be energy independent. Imagine how much money just being energy independent brings back to the United States. Because we're transferring all that wealth. We're still driving cars. That wealth goes overseas. I want to keep it here. When you keep it here, it helps our economy, we grow our economy. Because we grow our economy, that means more tax revenue for Washington, D.C. They should be for this, right? And so there's a way to do this as a combination of things to put us in a better place where it isn't just you have to lose everything because Joe Biden decided to borrow more money from places like China to sprinkle around his Democrat base. We can't afford it. Got to change. We can do it. We can work our way out of this.
I know we only have a few more minutes before you have to go to your next meeting, and we really appreciate your time. I really do. But obviously, you're for closing the border right now. Let's shut down the illegal immigration. We're all for legal immigration, but not illegal.
We should be for legal immigration.
Absolutely. And the one thing that is starting to be a concern, because it just happened in the state of Michigan, one of our supporters brought to our attention that the Secretary of State actually changed her address without her knowing it when she mailed in her absentee ballot to vote in the primary. And then she went and called. She got a letter in the mail from the Secretary of State saying, hey, if this wasn't you, please call us. She called the number and they said, well, we can't change it back. That's starting to happen in the state of Michigan, so I brought it and I tagged Jocelyn Benson. She didn't respond. Weird, but that is a concern, obviously, to a lot of Americans, especially Michiganders, is what are they willing to do to prevent people like you, prevent President Trump from winning this thing?
Well, it worries that worries us. So, and my campaign manager's here off screen. He's very, very handsome, just so if you're all wondering. They are working with other campaigns for ballot integrity, and we have to start now. And so we're going to have to do this jointly. It can't be just us doing it. It can't be just the RNC doing it. It can't be the state party just doing it. We're going to try to do this together. And here's the best way we get through this. We got to blow the doors off the election. Blow it off. We got to drag people to the polls that are going to vote with us. Make sure people understand what's at stake in this election. And let me give you one quick thing on why this is so important at stake. Here's what we know. Adam Schiff of California has said they want to do when he gets back to, he's running for the Senate in California. This is the same guy that was chairman of the Intelligence Committee that ran all of the absolute, I think, criminality of making accusations off that committee that we find out are not true, right, about President Trump, the whole Russiagate and all that. That was all Adam Schiff. When he's this is his words saying they're going to go back to Washington, D.C. They're going to do away with the filibuster. And why that's important is it's what stops the Democrats from making Washington, D.C. a state and putting 2 permanent Democrat senators in there, number 1. This is what they say they're going to do. This isn't even us speculating. They're saying they're going to do this. The other thing they're going to do, take the Supreme Court to 13 justices and nominate very liberal judges to get the decisions that they want coming out of the Supreme Court. I can't think of a more consequential election than this because of what they're telling us they're going to do to us.
Yeah, they don't hide it.
No,
they don't hide it.
And we got to win. And we have to really get energized. And the longer that we spend our time in separate camps, the better off. The Democrats love it. We have to stop doing. We have to get on board. Trump's our nominee. Mike Rogers is his endorsed candidate because he knows I can actually get these things done when I get to the Senate. Let's go. Let's get on board. Let's march to this victory in November, and let's protect the republic that we know and love today.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to flip it around. And just to let everyone know, this was just a last-minute meeting that we scheduled. I put him on the spot. And I said, hey, if you want to be transparent, we can go live right now. And he did. So what you just saw right now is a conversation between us and the Grassroots Army, which I think is pretty fantastic when you can have somebody who's running for office to just say, hey, yeah, I have nothing to hide. I'm ready to go. And who can be transparent with those questions, because as you can tell, I'm not like the corporate media. I don't hold back. So I'm going to hit them with some questions that you all want to hear. And I'm hoping that happened today. So God bless you. God bless the state of Michigan, of course, and always.